hello, ladies and gents. We're back for another year. A whole new year has begun. Again. Seems to happen quite often, doesn't it? Today we're going to talk about gear. Not that kind of gear. The carrying of magazines, the withdrawing of magazines, and so on and so forth. So it's not going to be a complete and utter breakdown of every type of kit on the planet. It's just relating solely to magazines. I'm going to break it down into three types when we get into it, which is going to be full retention, medium retention, and kind of taco style open pouch carrying of magazines. I'm also going to throw some tips in that I've learned along the way. Some of said gear is currently hanging up before you, and I've got my big pointy stick because I feel like I'm doing like a presentation. Oh, this might be a bit overkill. This feels like I'm about to bash someone to death. So that being said, let's first take a look at webbing and what that actually is and looks like, and then we're going to look at chest rigs, and then we're going to look at plate carrier slash, in my case, this, which is an American issue IOTV improved outer tactical vest. Not exactly a plate carrier, but kind of. It's a good enough representation. So this is an example of some traditional style webbing. This is a Russian Smersh rig. Now you got all the stuff like the PLCE, modern stuff like the Crossfire DZ rig, which is, do recommend that. It's a nice piece of kit. But in terms of magazine stowage, these are all going to be pretty similar. You're probably going to have at least 2 mag pouches on each side. Depending on the system, you can add anything you want to it. Some of them are even just full molly panel now, including the later version of this. But typically you're going to have stowage for up to 3 magazines if it's Stanag or 2 AK mags. In this case I'm using it with an AK, so I've got 2 magazines in each. Now this is an example of like full retention because it's fully covered by Velcro, and you also have a popper. You're probably going to have something for canteen and something for dump pouch on the back, in this case a dump pouch. Always have a good dump pouch, very important. Don't cheap out on a shitty one that's just not going to last 5 minutes. So it's your basic sort of load carrying equipment. It's going to have shoulder straps. You're going to be able to carry a lot of stuff on it. The PLCE ones, you can get very big pouches for that, like utility pouches, the British one. So you can put anything on that if you want to carry a lot of stuff. This kind of kit's quite good for woodland. Not so much CQB because there's a lot of bulk and it's banging into stuff. You're going to want a plate carrier and stuff for CQB. But in terms of carrying capacity, webbing is pretty good, because it already comes sort of preloaded with a whole bunch of pouches, so it's not like a case of you get a plate carrier and have to build it up. So if you want to just play and go in the woodland, this is a pretty good system to go with. So here's an example of a chest rig. This is probably one of the most common ones you will see. So this is the 8 Fields, there's all different companies make it. This particular one's the 8 Fields AK chest rig is how it's marketed. Again, it's another example of full retention. It's just carried on your chest instead of around your waist in like a webbing or a H harness setup. Different types of securing methods. This is just a simple one at the back with cross straps. So you can carry up to 8 magazines here, or if it's like a G36 or something thick, you're only going to be able to fit 1 in there. You've got your 2 utility pouches on either side, which you can put grenades, speed loaders. I put speed loaders in mine. If you've got a bit more money and you want to go the full honk, you got yourself a plate carrier. So in this case, this is an American issue IOTV, which is the improved outer tactical vest. So it's technically not a plate carrier, but the general idea is the same. You've got a plate on the front, a plate on the back. You may have side plates, and they're usually going to be molly, so you can add a whole bunch of stuff. This particular one is set up for my gunner kit, minus the pistol holster on the front I'd normally have as a chest holster. So at the moment, the pistol is sitting under this saw pouch, which is obviously useless because I can't withdraw it. But that's just an example of what's possible. I wouldn't necessarily wear these two together because this is my rifle belt and this is for the gunner setup. But it's just an example of what you can do. So you can really just add anything any way you want. And if you're planning to do a lot of, say, CQB stuff close up, this is really what you want because it's going to give you that added protection, especially if you've got side panels and things or you add pouches. But don't go crazy with adding pouches. Just add what you actually need. Don't turn into one of these these sort of gear humps, because you'll end up just taking half of that stuff off because you find it hangs up on everything. Now, one of my tips of today, which I'll throw in real quickly before we get on to all these magazine pouch options, never ever look past this, guys. A good pair of gloves. Oh, that's not very child friendly, is it? A good pair of gloves. Okay. Now, especially if you're buying gloves online and you can't try them on, try and get some that have the Velcro around the wrist, okay? Because then even if they don't fit absolutely perfectly,
you've got a little bit more strength around the wrist, a little bit more retention. Retention is important all across all kinds of combat gear. It doesn't matter if it's pistol holsters, mag pouches, gloves around the wrist. It's important stuff. You don't want things to be moving around, getting loose. It's the last thing you really want. Something that's important with gloves, and this will really help you reloading, a couple of things. You got nice security around the wrist. You don't want the fingers to be too long. It's better for gloves to be slightly too small than slightly too large, in my opinion, because you want that dexterity. You don't want this to be flapping around and becoming a hindrance. You also want something that's textured, right? So in this case, I've used these quite a bit. You got kind of the rubberized on the 3 fingers, which is great for pistol magazines, rifle magazines, things like that. You want something with a nice texture that's actually going to help you reload. So gloves aren't just about protecting your hands, they are actually a reloading aid too, because they improve your grip. So definitely worth getting a good pair of gloves that actually fit. Mechanics are pretty affordable, they're durable enough, they'll do the job, they're basically everywhere. This is a pair of Mechanics winter versions. So I'd invest in a good pair of gloves, important. So that aside, we're going to be looking at 3 different levels, so if people aren't really too sure about what all this means, I'm going to take a quick look. So, starting at the top then, this is that 8 fields, quote, AK chest rig. That's how it's marketed because it will fit 2 AKM mags. Now, just to show you, one of the main benefits of these is you can, especially if you're running, say, AR mags, AK mags, AUGs, I run all 3 of those. These are great because they're not specifically tailored for any one type of mag. Although it's marketed as AK mag, that's actually quite useful because the AKM magazines are pretty large and therefore any mag that's slightly smaller is going to fit perfectly as well. So just to demonstrate, we've got 2 AR mags in there which fit perfect, and these do have a little divider in, but I don't really bother using it. 2 AK mags, no problem at all. And 2 AUG mags with mag pulls, so they're going to be even chunkier than usual, and they fit just perfect as well. So if you've got like a variety of weapons, you just want something quick, there's nothing wrong with full retention sort of pouches like that, because they will just fit anything. You don't have to worry about them being specifically sized for your magazines, and then they fit these mags but they don't fit those. They will fit everything, so that's really the best thing about this. Cheap and cheerful, you can get them everywhere. Most webbing will have full retention, that's what we mean by this. So the magazine's fully covered. I've taken some of the Velcro off this because I thought it was a bit overkill. But it's going to be fully covered and it's going to be secured with poppers. So it's full retention, the magazine's fully covered. Something I would recommend doing is normally these will have side bits of Kadura as well. I personally cut those off because it makes these open a little bit more easily. And if you're trying to re-index a magazine or something, it's not constantly trying to close on you, because when you let it go, it will usually just close by itself anyway, or you can just swipe it down. So whether you're reloading from webbing or a chest rig like this, it's not going to be much different when it's full retention. The process is the same, only you're pulling it from here or there, that's it. So for the sake of ease of fitting it on the camera, I'm just going to go straight to the chest rig. So much like the webbing, you're going to have 2 magazines per pouch, depending on the type of mag. If you're using like an AR platform, which most people probably are, so something that accepts a Stanag mag, i.e. one of these, basic M4 mag you see everywhere, you can fit 2 of those per pouch. These typically will close by themselves, so when you withdraw a magazine and then you let it go, it's probably going to fall back onto the Velcro, so you don't have to worry too much about sweeping it back down. If it gets caught in your arm or something, which it often does, you can always nudge it or whatever, but generally speaking, it's always good. I've never lost a mag from something like this. I generally wouldn't recommend the ones with the clips, because like the old, whether it's Alice or it's the sort of the conventional clips that you see on everything, I forget the name of it, I wouldn't really recommend that because they're a little bit awkward to do up with one hand. You kind of want things that you can do with your offhand. But I've got a dump patch on the back here, and if you put a pair of socks in the bottom as well, it pushes your magazines up, so you want about 1/3 of the magazine sticking out. It'll make life a lot easier for you when you're doing your reloads. And I feel like people give these a lot of shit because they're a little bit slower, but they are nice and spacious. So if you're doing a tactical reload as well, for example, you've got plenty of room to sort of stick that magazine back. You might just have to sort of close it manually like I did there, but it still works. You're not going to lose your mags, and you can carry a shitload of mags on your front. So as long as you're not going prone too much, and then you're having your profile kind of raised up with all these mags on your chest. But if you don't care about that, then next up, we're looking at the US TAPS rig. This is actually a rig, well, it's not a rig so much, it's more of a tactical assault panel, which is what it's called, TAPS system. It's designed to attach to the front of the IOTV, which I showed earlier, although it's a little bit bulky and I wouldn't recommend doing that. However, in this case, I've attached I think it's Kydex or Kydex H harness, so it can be worn like a chest rig. This is a good example of what's known as medium retention. So the difference with medium retention is you've still got the magazines just sitting freely. They don't have like a, like we're going to look at later with the S-Tac Kiwis and the taco pouches, they don't have like a pressurized friction fit for the magazines. They do still have something over the top, but it's not fully enclosed. So in this case, this is just a Velcro pulley system. So you've got some Velcro here, which goes over the back. The most common type of medium range sort of retention system you'll see is probably the bungee system. So you'll have a little bit of bungee cord, like paracord here, that's elasticated. You either have a piece of Cordura or a plastic clip, which you just pull to one side and then you can pull the magazine out. So the bungee ones are pretty common. You can find those in like 3-cell, 4-cell, 6-cell, i.e. you've got, you know, 2 and 2 magazines doubled up on your front. I don't really like doing that. That's just a matter of preference. In this case, I could actually fit up to 6 magazines on the front, and then your 7th magazine goes in the rifle, so that completes your 7 issued magazines. It's good to have a little bit of retention, I think. Unless you're purely doing CQB, it's actually quite good to have your mags a little bit more secure, because if you think about it, they're that bit more secure in there. You're not really losing much reloading time, and most of the time you aren't going to be doing these super fast John Wick reloads unless you're really experienced or you don't mind actually dropping your mags on the floor, which generally I prefer not to if they're gas mags. In the real world, if you're doing a lot of mountainous terrain and you're climbing up and down mountains, anywhere where you might lose magazines, you probably want a bit more attention, because if you drop a mag from a pouch and it goes bouncing down the hill, you're never going to see it again. So it depends on your environment too. This is what's known as taco pouches. So what these basically are is Cordura, and I've left this one empty so you can see that's basically just Cordura, but you've got Velcro on the inside. Not all of them are like this, some of them will just be fully enclosed, but in this case, forget who makes this one, but it's a genuine one. These are S-Tac Kiwis, and we'll go on to how useful these are in just a moment, in fact. So you can either get these in short, medium or long, and what these basically do is they put retention around your magazine by sitting like that. So it just puts tension and sort of pinches it in the middle. So you'll have a situation where you can withdraw the magazines easily from the pouch and you can re-index them easily, but if you turn it upside down, it's not going to come out. So I think for CQB, where you're probably going to be reloading more and you need to reload quicker because you're going to be having 5-meter firefights on corners and things like that, this is probably the way to go. You also have to consider how easy is it going to be for me to find a magazine if I drop it. If the answer is easy because you're just inside a room because you're playing indoors and you drop your mag, that's fine, you can pick it up. I still use these in a woodland environment, but you want to make sure that they actually hold your mags. You don't want them to be too loose, so make sure you've got ones that fit your specific mags properly so you can avoid that problem. At the same time, you don't want them to be so tight that you're tearing your body armour off your cummerbund trying to pull them out. This is about what you want, so it's not too hard and it's not too tight either, but you can re-index it easily, which is the other beauty of these if you're doing tactical reloads. So what can we do to improve existing systems? So I'm going to use this TAPS panel again as an example, set up as a chest rig. So something you can do to improve things like this to make magazines a little quicker and easier to access is you will need 2 things. One of which we've already covered, S-Tac Kiwis. These things are great. You can pick up packs of them online for only a few quid. Definitely worth getting because you can add these to existing single cell pouches and it just makes them so much better. A little bit of a sock or wool or fabric. I cut up old pairs of socks. So what I did in my case, I took these out so I could show you how they go in. Just going to roll it up like that. You only want about that much, not too much, because this is going to push the magazine up. You stick this in the bottom like that. You tuck in this case the Velcro tab in, because you don't want that getting in the way. And then you're going to stuff in the S-Tack kiwi so it makes contact with the Velcro at the back like that. And now, when you stuff an AR mag in it, you've now got like a taco style mag pouch, and you can do this with at least 4 of them until they get too tight on this particular rig. So that's one way you can make any kind of single cell magazine pouch a bit more effective. If you put something in to sort of push them up, like a bit of fabric, and then S-Tack kiwi, job done. And that makes this thing a lot more functional and quick to access in like a CQB scenario, or if you want to draw your mags out quickly, you can modify your existing gear. Another example of that I've got is the AUG rig I made. I made this specifically for my Steyr AUG. So this is the same exact thing as the one we looked at earlier. So what I've done is I've cut the flaps off and I've removed the Velcro, and I've added Scorpion G codes inside here. So this has now turned this into a rig for my AUG mags, which have a couple there. So now that's essentially done the same thing. They won't come out, they're in there perfectly good, and combined with the mag pulls, it makes them nice and easy to withdraw. So there's all sorts of things you can modify. It depends, you know, you can either just buy stuff. I had a lot of bits lying around, so I just make things because I just quite like doing that. Just paracord them through the drainage holes at the bottom to make them secure, and there you go. So there's no limit really on what you can throw together if you're a little bit innovative. If you can't find exactly what you need to fit a certain type of mag, then that's a good way to get around it. So if we compare that now to the modified TAPS rig that's got the little bit of a sock in the bottom to push the magazine up, and the S-Tack kiwi, this is a lot easier to withdraw because you basically have nothing to undo. You're going straight to the magazine and you're pulling it out. So I use my gas blowback MWS for this. So if you're doing CQB, I would really recommend using a setup like this, you know, taco pouches, because chances are you're going to be reloading probably a lot more because you're having vicious close-in firefights with a lot of shooting. And if you're using a gas blowback rifle, which I pretty much always am, 30 rounds, right? So you're going to be reloading a lot more because each magazine has a lower capacity. So especially if you've got like a gas blowback or something, having something you can withdraw quicker to try and alleviate that slight disadvantage of having a lower magazine capacity versus people with mid caps and so on, then that's going to help you out better in the long run. You're at an advantage as well by having the magazine sticking up a little bit, because if you're running full pelt and things are moving around, it's a lot easier to grab that much of the mag than it is that much of the mag.
So here's my battle belt, right? One of them. Something I'd wholeheartedly recommend, and I'd especially do this on webbing, for example, the Smirsh, right? Because you've got a lovely spot there. If you've got webbing that's full retention, so it's a little bit slower reload, you've got to lift up the flap, move the bungee if it's medium retention, whatever. Anything that slows you down, put a fast mag pouch above your dump pouch. Trust me. Something I would advise doing is reload from this one as much as possible. Then when you've got a chance, take magazines from your right, i.e. your non-vital side, and keep filling this one up. Always keep a magazine in this fast mag pouch above your dump pouch, because the more you can reload from this, that means you're always going to have a quicker reload. The way I treat webbing when I've got one of these on is the magazines actually in my webbing are simply there to refill this when I've got a chance. If you don't have time, you have to reload from your webbing, so be it. But this is so much quicker, because what's basically happening is as soon as you stow the old magazine in your dump pouch, your hand comes right up onto the new mag. So that will just speed up your reload. I'll only touch on pistols and battle belts briefly, because battle belts are kind of a whole subject to their own. But only 2 things I'll say. Taco pouches for pistol mags, absolutely. If you're down to a pistol, you're in shit. So you want to be able to reload it quickly. Secondly, if you do have a pistol and you like using it, don't cheap out on your holster. Get a decent holster. So in my case, I've got a Real Steel covered up with camo tape QLS system. I've got a Real Steel Safariland. This is a Kydex holster though, and a Glock 17 light bearing. It's only light retention, doesn't have any of the buttons or switches or anything. It's literally a friction fit. But you can change your holsters out nice and easily. So don't cheap out on a holster. That being said, one of the real benefits of taco pouches as well is not just the ease of withdrawing a mag, it's the ease of re-indexing it. So say if I wanted to do a tactical reload, so the way I would do this, I'd have my pistol out in the workspace in front of me, as I'd call it. I'd use these two fingers to get around the base plate of the magazine. I'd create a pocket to drop that mag into. The beauty of tacos is they're very easy to reinsert while still keeping your eyes downrange. So you can keep the pistol up if you wanted, and now your pistol's ready at downrange whilst you're reinserting this. Just makes it nice and easy to do. So don't cheap out on holsters and get taco pouches. So, if you love using the big boys, like me, and you're a bit of an LMG nut, one of the best things I've found for carrying your ammunition, because if you're a normal person, you've only got one mag and you're just going to refill the mag on the gun, right? In this case, I've got the ball gear mag, so it's got a lovely, easy open door there. You can load it whilst the gun's firing, which is quite fun. I've done it. The best thing I've found for this, from the paintball world, paintball hoppers. They come in orange, spray them a colour that blends in. These are absolutely fantastic because you can do it with one hand whilst you're prone. You don't have to unscrew a lid, pop it straight open, pour it in, throw it in your dump pouch. Great tip. So if you know a guy who does paintball, ask him to keep some aside for you. I know the camera work was a little bit chaotic because I can't swing a cat in here, so I have to keep moving the camera depending on what I'm trying to show. I'll put some more content out soon, gonna have some more reviews coming, but that being said and that aside, Happy New Year. If you're living in the UK, maybe not so much, but you know, we get by, don't we? But take care guys, feel free to rate, comment and subscribe, and I will see you soon.